Hello, I'm Guillaume Maudoux. I'm working with Tweag, which is a consultancy. We are doing tons of different jobs for different clients with Bazel. And today I wanted to show you a toy project that we open sourced that may grow into something bigger. It's about maintaining your dependency for Python application and Python libraries. So, as you know, maintaining these dependencies, that's the topic of already several talks before. And basically, when you make a change to a Python file, you need to make equivalent change to the dependency of your targets. Well, it's easy to do. There is nothing tricky, but it's also really boring. And you don't want to do it yourself because it's duplication. The same data is very close to duplicated in these two places. Also, it's easy to get wrong, and when it gets wrong, it doesn't fail automatically. Sometimes you fail to declare a dependency, and everything works. And then you remove another library that did bring your dependency in the mix, and suddenly everything falls apart, and you don't know why, because it's kind of unrelated. So it's very important that each target has the correct set of dependencies, and you can have very strange kind of bugs in every direction, like too many, too few, the wrong kind of dependencies, or whatever. You know that already. Yeah, so the standard solution is to use Gazelle. And Gazelle is an amazing tool, so I will say I did something completely different, but if you can use Gazelle, it's an amazing tool. It's blazing fast. It will update your build files, so you can just refresh the things over and over. The thing is, it requires very strict conventions, and if you don't abide by these conventions, it's going to do very weird stuff. Like, the most annoying thing for me is it will delete any Python rule that it doesn't understand. I would be happy to have it manage the things it understands and let the other thing on the side, but it doesn't work like that. It's a very complete tool, which makes sense. It removes things that do not make sense anymore, but you have to abide by the tool, and for that specific project, we couldn't. It was just too much to do. We had libraries in the same folder, that there were two different libraries, but also one, and some of the library files were also binaries that you could run. I mean, you can do whatever you want with Python, really, and if you're not disciplined, then you end up in some weird corner case where you can't use Gazelle. The biggest issue, if you want to think about Gazelle, it has 3 different modes, and you need to pick one, but you can mix and match. So either your whole subtree is a Python library, and then all the Py files are one library, or it's just a current folder, and so all the Py files are in library, or there is a file mode, which I thought would solve all my issue, but doesn't. It just means that every Python file is a Py library or a Py binary or whatever, and on top of that, you can have files with a specific extension that would be binaries or executables, stuff like that. But that's the extent of it. And it makes sense. Please, start your project using Gazelle, abide to some good conventions. But if you end up in the situation where we were, then I went to develop something else. And it turns out, at Tweag, another team was developing Fawltydeps, a tool that takes a Python project, looks for all the import statements, and see if it matches the requirement, the text, or whatever project file you have. And we tell you the discrepancies, things that are unused, things that are things that you declare as dependency, but you don't actually use in your import statement, things that you import, but that you don't declare as dependencies, and that stuff. The point being to ensure that you declare exactly what you use, not much, no less. Also, the project names come from faulty towers, because everything in Python needs to be named after Monty Pythons. I thought it was the snake, but apparently it's the Monty Pythons thing, so yeah. I found the project name, I was so happy, so that's why I need to mention it. Okay. So I just released it in the rules Fawltydeps repo, so you can have a look at it. It's early stages, it's working for one client, and a lot of things have not been ironed out for generic usage, but it's already available. And the way it works, you take the requirements file, and then rules Python will parse it, generate a target that is a bit special, but contains all the wheels, so all the Python package that your build may depend on. I use Gazelle because why redo something that already exists? And Gazelle creates a mapping file, so it tells me, hey, that Python package provide that import statements. I pass that to Fawltydeps. along with the sources and along with some modified change I make to the depth list so that it looks like a requirement, the text file to the tool. I need to basically transform a PyLibrary from Bazel to proper, or something that looks like a Python project with requirements, a set of files, a name, etc. And then I get a report saying like, hey, these things you did not declare, these things you are declaring but you don't use, and like everything else is good. So, okay. I try very hard to include only what's like, to have a very strict dependency on what you use. So I like, the way this is implemented, it doesn't bring like the whole transitive set of Python libraries, which happens normally, right? So you depend on a library, that depends on another library. Everything becomes available to the main binary, for example. But here, for the purpose of testing, I'm not doing that, and I'm restricting to direct dependencies. Either the direct dependencies on PyLibraries, on pip packages. I want to show 3 example runs. The first one is like, okay, it runs and it detects that you're depending on requests, but nothing in your PyLibrary is actually using it. So you can remove it. And it also emits a buildozer command for you to do it. So it's like, okay, just paste that in your terminal and it's fine. The other case, of course, is like, okay, I see you are like importing BS4, but I don't know where it comes from, so you need to specify it in your dependencies, right? And it's true, but in most cases it's not enough, because we are working out of a requirements file, so we know like we have a list of all the packages we can access. So ideally, we would like the tool to be able to say, hey, you import BS4, it's not on your dependencies, but I know a package that's already available to Bazel that you could use. And so there is like a third case where we modified Fawltydeps to make suggestions where it has access to a package set. And then it can say, hey, okay, so this package is available, this is what you need to add to your deps. And so we can, again, write a buildozer command for it. What's nice about this project? I mean, there are things that are not nice, but what's really nice is it goes through Bazel. I'm using like the Bazel semantics. I'm writing an aspect on top of PyLibraries and like all the PyInfo providers. So I'm doing the same thing as Bazel. I run Fawltydeps in the same environment as the environment that Bazel creates. So I'm like, there is no guessing the semantics of Bazel like Gazelle has to do because it runs outside of Bazel. It makes it simple and also like kind of safer and correct by design. Because it runs with Bazel build, it also means that you get caching, so you don't need to rerun it for all the targets that have not changed. And then what I like about it, because we had to apply it in a very strange repo, you just run it on the targets you want, and you opt in, so you only run it when you want it. So it never gets in the way. With Gazelle, if somehow it breaks, then you cannot build anything. You end up with like broken build file, or your targets are not correct. So this is like just, hey, this is more like an afterthought. I want to test it now, but I'm a bit, I want to test on that target, but not the rest. Like I said, it emits a buildozer command, right? So if you grab for this, you can pass it to bash and up, you have automation. It works surprisingly well. I wouldn't recommend that, but in the end, I've been using that over and over, and it's like pretty neat. So it's a bit tricky in many ways, like to deal with Python, and I wanted to show, in 1 minute, I wanted to show like the difficulty of dealing with Python paths and stuff, because a binary, like a Python executable, it has access to things that are relative to its own paths, and that's not the same thing as libraries that cannot access things unless they are executed by the binary. And so there are tons of corner cases that the tool ideally should deal with, and also, even if this is very flexible, I'm still relying on some assumptions and some like things that I hope you are not doing. Ideally, in the long term, this should be fixable, but it's not there yet. A word about the limitations. It only works with external dependencies for now. In theory, you could like also fix internal dependencies, but it's not there yet. And as I said, the configuration is not complete. But I already did some work, like I patched Fawltydeps so to support like suggestion, to fix some issues with the paths. But Fawltydeps has still some limitations, like it only works with top-level imports. So if you want like nested import things, it's not supported. Sometimes there is a confusion because some packages have the same top-level imports, stuff like that. So yeah, overall, I think use your judgment. I'm like recommending Gazelle whenever you can, especially if you're starting a new project, but otherwise, come and play with my project. It's also quite fun. It's still a work in progress, and there are plenty of things to change, but I mean, contributions welcome. There are plenty of things it can do, which I would summarize, and they're like, it's flexible, just use it wherever you want. And I truly believe in its potential, so like, please join, discuss, and go see the repo. Thank you.